Welcome back, everybody. Well, maybe not welcome back to everybody in the room, but welcome, I should say. Thank you all for being here. We would like to make sure we always thank our amazing partners and sponsors, William Ravis and Woodmeister. And we want to also thank our sponsors of this panel, Blue Flag Development and Studio 534. And I am very excited to make this introduction to Laura Doyle, CEO of America's largest woman-owned auction house. I love saying that. So I'm going to hand it off to you so we can get started and introduce our fabulous panel.
Thank you so much, Marla. We're so happy to be here. And I think I can say that I have the greatest panelists today. So I think what's really interesting about them, before I introduce them individually, is how they span the country and bring different perspectives. And a thread of fashion and art run throughout. So Keita Turner, who hails from Houston and St. Louis.
Yeah. Born in Houston.
Grew up in St. Louis, educated at RISD, a background in fashion and interior design. And I think what's amazing about Keita is you really see it all come together with her line of pillows, Livy and Neva, named after her grandmothers, which incorporates vintage and contemporary fabric and really dresses the home. So you'll see in her beautiful interiors, but also really encapsulated in her pillow collection. Mary McDonald, third generation Angelino, who's spending her time between Los Angeles and New York. And Mary, you might recognize her from Million Dollar Listing, one of the first and most exciting
Decorator.
Bravo.
I'm not a $1 million.
Million dollar decorator. I'm sorry, $1 million decorator.
I should have got a $1 million listing. I would have done better.
An amazing interior design show. And Mary also has had many collections for Schumacher, Patterson, Flynn and Martin, Chaddock Home. And I think that she brings her experience as a milliner, educated at Parsons, and that refinement and the detail into everything that she does. And I think if you've ever seen a picture of Miles Redd jumping in his bathroom wearing a top hat, you can see that fashion is unforgettable, and you can that thread of millinery runs throughout. So Miles Redd, born in Atlanta, educated at NYU, and he also has had many collections: Schumacher, Patterson, Flynn and Martin as well, but also Ballard Designs and the Lacquer Company. And Miles and David together are part of the AD 100. And I think that David joined Miles in 2008, and they renamed their partnership Red Kaihoi in 2019. David is from Minnesota, and he is Bethel University educated artist who is a ceramicist and mixed media collage history. And also David and Miles met because he was pursuing art installation, and he just had an incredible eye that Miles couldn't resist to bring onto his team. So we're so happy to have you all here today to talk about antiques and vintage furniture and art and how you incorporate them into your designs. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
First, I just wanted to ask, walk me through the process. You are meeting a client for the first time, and maybe they have an existing collection, and how does it start? Do you go take a tour of their home? How do you work in the pieces that they have in their collection?
You want me to start?
Is this like a jump in thing?
Yeah. Keita?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can start. We had a recent project where, funny story actually, her husband found us, and then the wife called, and she's describing, well, how do I say this? She was downsizing from a townhouse in the city that she shared with her late husband, and then she remarried after her son matured and grew up. So anyway, she's describing the condo that they're buying in, and as she's describing it, I was like, that sounds like my building. And so I was like, oh, great. So it was, anyway, I ended up having a client that we lived in the same building. So that was interesting. It was, so I had to be on my, P's and Q's, because I was running to her in the elevator. But yeah, I do recall visiting the townhome, going through, doing an inventory of the pieces that they had in that home, as well as some of their other homes. And it was funny because while in the living room, there was a beautiful, very intricately carved armoire. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I said, this is gorgeous. And I remember opening it up, and there was no back. And I was like, that's, she goes, well, I bought it when I was 25, and I just love it. But it just sits here. And I said, okay, well, we want to use this, but let's, we have to make it functional. I believe in form meets function. So we ended up turning it into a wine cabinet. So I had my woodworker, wood shop, really retrofitted, which ended up being I won't go into that process, but, so yeah, that was just, an example of how you inventory, you go through their pieces, and you see what you can integrate.
Yeah, we used to see that a lot in our business where people would take the backs out for the big tube televisions. And then we saw a lot of them come back on the market without the backs. Because
I think she bought it without
TVs.
The back.
Yeah.
It didn't have a back. But
interesting. Mary, what's your experience? How do you start with your clients?
Well, everybody's so different that some people it's a ground up, so they don't have anything for this particular house. And then other people have things they want to save. Usually I don't want to save it. Because it's hard to use things. I mean, other than a dining table and chairs that they might have had that they brought in their family that you like, I'm generally trying to create something new for them that they want. But I will try to use anything that I feel is stylish or can be incorporated into the vibe of what we're going for. But sometimes it's not very easy to reuse something because of the size or the wall. You don't have a wall for it, things like that. So I will try, but I'm happy to start over and buy a new antique. So
strike a match.
Yes, I'll try. I'm open. It's easier for me to do things for myself, save things for myself, because I'm not constantly having to approve it with myself. And I might do something that's kind of funky and out of the norm of using something, repurposing it in a different way. But I do find clients are a little more afraid to do things that are a little weird that you might do for yourself. Mm-hmm. Like a bed doubles as a tub or something very weird. But I try. I will look at what they have, and if it's really beautiful, I will find a way to make it work. But a lot of times it's not.
Mm-hmm. I think you say it extremely well. You have to throw out the junk. You're the editor. You have to know what's going to work and then the things that do work. I always like to give a facelift or a makeover where you paint it, you reupholster it, you change it, and it looks completely different. And that's what's fun because they are getting something new and different. And that's why they called you in the first place.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's not exactly, or it is kind of obvious to everyone. Once you start down the road, you begin presenting a few things and ideas and objects, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is much better. So they kind of answer the question themselves, like, oh, I was really attached to that, but I see that we're up in the ante a little bit and moving on.
I'm thinking of that scene in When Harry Met Sally with the wagon wheel coffee table, and Carrie Fisher says, everyone thinks they have style and a sense of humor, but they don't. So how do you have those difficult conversations, or have you had any wagon wheel coffee tables or things you've had to incorporate that you just...
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had things where people say, this is my grandmother's, but it wasn't really good then. We all have sentimental things that were it's kind of ugly, but it was... my mother's or my grandmother's, and I find a way. There's always some weird room in the house, like a weird second, tertiary family room. So I find a way for things that are really weird and bad if I have to keep them, that just is a little bit of like, how about that room that it's your sentimental room of ephemera and items.
Yeah. We had a client that
Stephen,
And then
go
I'm
lock
like, I
yourself
didn't
in
do that
room.
room really. You did.
had these antique silverware and flatware. And she really was, so she was very eclectic. She was an artist. This was my first time actually working with a fashion designer, another fashion designer, which I loved because it was challenging and that we could feed off of one another. But some of her, I mean, this was, usually the designer's pushing the envelope, but she wanted to turn the silverware into a lamp fixture. And I was like, God, how am I going to keep, like, or she wanted to, put them as, like, hardware in the kitchen cabinetry. So finally I was just like, it's cliche.
Yeah.
Like, we're not, I'm sorry, we can't.
Yeah.
I'm brutal. I'm just like, no, that's hideous.
I sometimes blame things on vendors. Like they said they can't refinish it.
That's a good one.
Oh, they can't.
Or I make a comparison of what it looks like, and then they're like, oh, like someone was like, what is this? And I was like, the bottom of a bird cage, maybe?
Yeah. They need an analogy. Yes.
And are there things that, when you're starting fresh, do you leave spaces in the homes for the unexpected or the serendipitous or for antiques, or how do you approach that? Is there
For the love, I think you always have spots. We always have sort of a floor plan, and it's pretty specific. And you have things that like should kind of meet dimensions and measurements, but you're always going to find something along the way that changes the game a little bit. We love this cabinet. You love this like side table or something that just like makes the room into a different thing, maybe twist it somehow. And you like that's fun. You have a game plan, but then you kind of shop and have fun along the way.
And how much do you bring your clients into the process? Do you go shopping together, or do you go on buying trips, or?
Do you, Mary?
I don't really want to unless they want to for fun. I just like to do all of it and present it. I mean, it doesn't mean they like everything.
Yeah.
But back to what you said before, do you leave spaces open for like surprises? Well, you have a hard time finding what you had in your mind anyway. That you like. I work off a furniture plan because we have to all agree. Like, you want to sit here, and it would make sense to have this here and cabinet there. So within that, sometimes you come across things like he said, like you never even planned on. But if you happen, if a space was sort of a little bit undefined, like I had a huge mirror, I think it's on one of my pictures, and I just loved it, but it was this huge Italian mirror. I didn't really know where it was going. It was like early in the process. So that was like a thing where I actually bought this. I know we could use it. We could use it in the entry. I got it before we actually nailed it all down. And I thought, because if I do that, I think like, could I keep this? And then I go, yes, I would keep this, even if I didn't have a spot for it. Because I have to be willing to eat it if it's really ridiculous. But I didn't. I do that. You don't?
You do? Never. I always get in there.
Because I kind of like it.
Push it because you want it.
I really actually, I kind of
You
wanted
actually
it.
secretly want it. That I get. When you really want something, you're like, no, you don't. It doesn't work, so I'm taking it.
I did take back a
do you
table
know?
that I was like, that doesn't feel right here. I did. And I was like, that's just because I wanted it after the whole job.
I get that. But, I was going to say that you do allow for things. I think it's mostly things that go on the wall. There's going to be this slide. So, for example, the screen in that. We'd never in a million years thought this was a whole chinoiserie room, but we saw that screen and we thought, my God, it's amazing. And I was like, you've got to get it. And so I was like, it's going to go. We got it. We covered the whole Chinese wallpaper that they had just paid for. But
Wow.
The room was enormous, and it was on like 7 other walls. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is a nice foil. It's going to make the paper even better. And it really did end up making the room. So you kind of have to wing it once you're on site.
And what about, how do you establish the budget for these things that you're buying?
What's a budget?
I know. What budget?
You kind of know at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do,
How much
yeah,
money
do
are
an
these people
assessment. Yeah.
going to be willing to spend
You make a floor
overall?
plan. You make
Yep.
a floor plan. You list everything on the floor plan that you need. You put a realistic price on it. People know. You can look on First Dibs. You can look at
Yes.
auctions.
Yeah.
You put a price on it, and then you go shopping for it, and that's your budget.
And what
Yes.
about art too?
Art too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always
But
have
some-
something in
yeah.
that for art.
Sometimes our clients already, they have an established collection. I mean, we may have to fill pieces in here and there, but you ask them, what is what's your comfort level? At what, are you at affordable art level, 10K or over 100K? You just find out where they are.
Those are hard questions. And Mary and I had this conversation where, like, I wish I knew when someone would say, like, oh, no, I'm going to spend a whole lot of money. I would have shown you this.
Yes. Oh, there's the mirror.
It's there. See,
That
it's
mirror, and
fabulous.
it's in a very clean area, but it's not a
Fabulous.
clean mirror.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's an expectation of what a room looks like and what people want their house to look like. If they're like, we want it to be this, you're sort of like, well, that's this kind of number, like this sort of budget. Like you can't, look at the rug, look at the walls, look at all this stuff, or the lack of, and you can kind of like realistically figure out how you can get there. And so everybody kind of has an expectation of like what it's going to take. And that, I think, informs all of the shopping, where you're shopping, if you're like, we need to, we can go for one big splash here, or if you can collect a lot of like amazing things for, one room.
But to just on a different point, it is curious what makes things look expensive, which and sometimes are not. Like
Yes,
that
that's
Italian
high
mirror
low.
made
Yeah.
that room look expensive.
I know it did.
Do you know what I mean? Like art will and you can buy art for like things that are like $200, and they literally look like Vermeers and look so much more. And I think that's the
think it's
trick
the-
of a
the mix.
decorator.
If
Yeah,
they
the
get
trick
out
a
of the way,
decorator.
though, because this is what a problem I find, trying to collect things that look collectible for people. You kind of need to buy it when you see it. Like if something is $200 or $600 and it's not 6,000, or I find
just get
it's
it.
frustrating. You've got to
Yes.
just get
Yeah.
it. And
it's hard to
if-
like take a picture.
And then I'm
send
gonna
it to
send
them.
it to you, but someone
Will you
on-
approve this, please?
It's absurd. It's absurd.
But you also have to have clients that also get it. Like I've found that, and I used to not think this, but sometimes the clients that have very good taste and they are enthusiasts actually end up being the easiest ones to work with versus some that it's just not, they want a nice house, but it's not really their passion. And it's a little harder to infuse that passion. Like, when you travel, bring things, I sometimes encourage, bring things back from your travels. Like, it can't just be, even though it can't be me just, putting everything in your home. Like, your personality needs to shine through. Your likes, your wants have to be there as well.
So they understand the value of objects.
Yes, and I had a client recently that was like, well, no, it's just a chair. I said, no, it's not just a chair. And I realized, like, okay, I have to explain to her, that this is more than just, this is
Piece of
art.
sculpture.
It's
Yeah.
sculpture, yeah.
Yeah. And are there forms that you find yourself always going back to, or regardless of having a client or not, you're like, if I see this, I'm going to buy it, or makers or artists that you just love to buy all the time?
Hell yeah.
You love a bust. I know that.
I do love a bust. Give me a pair of, like
I love
Louis
a
says,
bust,
slipper
too.
chairs.
And
Yeah.
a pedestal and an urn.
I know. One point I was going to say, I always say at the beginning of a project, the more yeses I get out of you, the better the project. Do you know? So I'm like, just keep that in mind. If you're saying no to me again and again and again, you have to realize, like, I'm not, first of all,
Yeah.
it's defeatist.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
not bringing you things that you like, but then you're not seeing the whole picture. So why did you hire me in the first place?
Yes.
So they're like, okay. And I was like, sometimes you're not going to understand till we install. So there's a lot of trust in this process, but like, trust me, I'm not going to make anything look bad.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's a good point.
Come to my house.
That's a good point.
If you say yes.
I had a client who, she would be like, we'll see. Or she was, like, we became really good friends after a while. And she's just like, it's going to be okay, Keita. It'll be okay. And we would laugh about it, but
Was it okay?
it was okay. It was okay. But that was her way.
was
That
it
was
okay?
her way of trying to like push back. And I'm
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
I'm very,
Yeah.
I can be very persuasive. Where I've had clients like, okay, you really want to keep coming back around to that. Yes, it's still in the bag. It's not going anywhere. You're gonna see it reoccur. It's gonna come out until
I bring
we get a
things
yes.
back around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if
Because
I
you
just-
know.
Well, no, they just get bored of looking at different things that they didn't like. So I just bring it back around and they forgot. So it's
like,
fine.
wow,
I
that's
was like,
fantastic.
yes. I was like, so does this feel better now?
Now do you understand?
Yes.
Now do you
I
get
do.
it?
I bring things back around.
And do you feel like there's a right mix in terms of a formula of like, I'm going to do 80% new and 20% old, or how do you make it come alive, mixing the old and the new?
I don't think
There's
I
definitely
don't
a formula.
there
Yeah.
is, but I don't know what it is because you have a certain amount of things that are just new because
Upholstery and curtains.
is new.
Generally. And then you mix in the antique chairs, the mirrors, the art, like,
You can kind of tell when you've got too many old lady things lined up.
can you?
Well, I don't know.
I'm not so
I,
sure.
I like a lot of old lady things, but sometimes you've got too many
You are my
granny things.
people. You are my people. Will not have any dispersions made of old ladies.
I don't know. I know some people poo-poo on mid-century, but I happen to love mid-century, and I know a lot of it is. Well, and I'll be honest with you, not a lot of our clients are. Sometimes I don't want to say we have to convince them to buy antiques. Some of them, I think it may be a connotation, or ooh, that just feels too grandma, or that feels too old, or it may have a connotation to a period of time where they cannot relate to. So I find that I love to mix, I will mix in the English lady's secretary with those mid-century Italian, wingback chairs. Like
That's
I love a
what's
good,
cool.
I
That's
love a
what's
good
cool.
wingback
Yeah.
chair.
Yeah, that's
and it doesn't it can be attributed to, Gio Ponte. It doesn't have to be an authentic piece, but I like the mix. I feel like that's what makes a space fresh and new and contemporary.
Yep.
So I probably will not, I probably would not do everything in one period. And sometimes it may not make sense, but it works.
I mean, I grew up in a house filled with antiques, as you can imagine. My best friend's mom was a decorator, and she had her bedroom redone with, a mirrored wall and leopard carpet and a day bed and this great long desk with a back with a cork bulletin board and a rolling desk chair. And I said to my dad, I need a desk.
Yeah.
I need to do my homework at a desk. And so he's like, I got a desk for you. It was a early American slant front student's desk with an inkwell. So I think there might have been some door slamming, and I ended up doing my homework at my bed. But it was, at the same time, he instead of the cork board, I got an early American portrait of a young boy about my age that he referred to as my boyfriend. I still have my boyfriend, actually, but I don't have the desk. So I think that finding that kind of, I'm sure in Nantucket you run into this all the time. How do you live in a home and also sort of preserve the character when you have the lower ceilings and you have the old floorboards? And how do you make it feel, the nod to the past? And are there any projects that you feel like, have been particularly successful kind of taking into consideration the historic context?
You mean houses?
Yeah,
Paul?
houses that you've had, or the setting, or any particular era that you've really embraced.
I have not embraced one particular era because I'm just
Yeah.
not like, oh, it's a federal house,
Yep.
and I'm going to wear a cap. And
My
but if a
handmaid's
house is
cap.
old, I've worked on a lot of old properties that I loved everything about the age of it.
Like doing your own house now,
Oh.
upstate.
No, that's not successful yet. That's not successful yet. Let's give this to Miles. I have no answer. I don't even know why I started
I guess
talking.
for me, decorating today is about mining every century because every century, every decade has offered something amazing and something great.
Yeah.
Like the 80s had something great. The 90s had something great. Like the 18th century, the 50s, the 40s, the 60s, there's all, and like what we do is take bits and put it all together in an interesting way. And I think that's the pleasure of it. And like, everything is valid and everything is on the table if it works. And like, you know when it works and you know when it doesn't, and it's just your eye.
It's kind of just an intuitive
Yeah.
thing. There isn't really.
You're just like, that feels
There-
good, or that
yeah, like
doesn't
that
feel
just
good.
looks bad for
Right?
some reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even know, and you want to use. Don't you ever sometimes want to use
Oh,
something,
God.
and you're like, why does this look bad?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I thought this was
the
going to
things
look
you,
good.
the
I do
things
think
you
that-
bring on the
yeah.
truck during the installation. I
Yes.
was like,
But I do
just
think
need
the
to see that Queen Anne
architecture-
table in the room.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, doesn't fit or
No.
and I'm just like, but just put it there for a while. I'm gonna push it around.
Yes, and it's like hanging out into the door,
Totally.
and then you try to
Just
turn it
leave
like,
Don't
what
take it out
about
of
at an
here.
angle?
Don't take it out yet.
And then you just can't. You have to get rid of it.
I know. I'm like, take it out.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, yeah, I do think that the architecture does dictate. So even though you guys asked us to also include inspiration
Yeah.
pictures, but I remember we working on a project. I always wanted to work on a craftsman bungalow. And I was like, oh, well, no, I think I have to be someplace like, I don't know, California or West Coast, that's never going to happen. And then I had some long-term clients where the young couple, where I worked on a home in Red Hook, and then they bought their second home in Ditmas Park. Never heard of Ditmas Park until I drove up to the home, and I was like, what? Oh my! It was a craftsman. I'd never heard of the Ditmas Park. I manifested
I
it.
don't know what it is.
It's
What
in
is it?
Brooklyn, and there are these freestanding homes
Oh.
that are like Victorian as well, but as well as like,
Freestanding in Brooklyn. That's
yeah,
cool.
it was. I mean,
I've seen it.
It's really
And
fun
it-
at the holidays because they decorate
the
and the lights.
holidays.
Yeah.
And they bought at the right
old
time
days.
too.
Yeah.
They didn't hold on to it
Civilized,
very long, but it was
civilized.
like, but there were stained glass windows, and I really embraced the stained glass windows. So actually, yeah, so I put this fretwork wallpaper up
Yeah.
to kind
so
of
far away.
Bring
work
it
with
together.
it, to
yeah.
bring it
But it's
together.
an
So,
That's cool.
yeah.
But you guys are doing projects all over the country. Do you think about the sense of place when you're starting a project in those, and how do you modify based on those different locations?
Yes. I mean, I'm doing something in Montana in the mountains. So everything looks mountainy and woody and metally and has a hand to it and looks sort of hammered, even though it's a contemporary house, because you're always looking outside. So, yes.
Yeah. And we're doing a Mediterranean home in Florida. So again, one of our clients in New York bought a home down in Florida. So always want to do a project in Florida, and then here you go. So yeah, manifesting.
And do you
Works,
buy
yeah.
art from artists that are in those locations too? Do you feel
Well,
like that's
That particular client is of, she's Hispanic origin, so she collects a lot of art from Hispanic artists, so we're really leaning into that. And when I come across more artists from that genre, I kind of introduce her to more. So.
We have a fun client in California, in LA. It's a Truesdale house, and it's an old, or a really modernist house. And we started with kind of like an existing collection of a lot of like 18th century heavy gilded Baroque sort of things. And so it was really all about kind of this contrast of the house and the things. And he's a real curious like collector himself. And you kind of follow taste, and he's like, you know, this room, I kind of want to, like, let's do another room there. And we've sort of like traveled around the house and kind of updated it all, and now it's like Charles Edwards rugs and all of this really like mid-century guided stuff, and it's a totally different spot, and it's really been like 6 years or so, and he's just like working this house, and it's a fun exercise about place and how you decorate with the place, you know, from sort of this like Rat Pack like contrast to I don't know, just a like totally different vibe that feels like great, like a different complement to the house. It's cool.
I mean, I think it's cool thinking about architects and influences for you all. We see a huge surge in decorator sales and celebrity sales, and that the provenance really excites people and drives the prices up. How much do you care about provenance versus the piece? And also, you each have your own collections. Do you buy from other decorators new collections and incorporate those in your pieces, in your projects as well?
Yes. Mary, your new stuff for Chaddock is great, by the way. I did. I mean, like, I always look and like,
Thank you.
you know, it's great. It's like,
what was your favorite thing?
you know,
We're just going to talk about us for
you know, I loved the 72-inch wide chest because, like, sometimes you need these giant
Oh,
chests in a bedroom,
yes.
and they're so ugly. And yours was
know.
beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And I love
I like the X bench.
The
You
Louis
don't-
says slipper chairs.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I did. I know, I did. You know, I mean, but
Who doesn't like those? They're an easy sell.
but to answer
Celebrity.
yeah, I
Thank
love
you, and I
celebrity
love your
collection.
lacquer company.
Thank you.
I do.
I-
Oh, and you know I love the pedestal and the urn because I bought these things for Miles years ago on Ballard because they're so fancy looking, but they're really fake.
Yeah,
and
they were like
fabulous.
$125.
They were so fantastic, and I was like, this looks very, very real. And they don't sell them
I
anymore.
do have
so-
a pair of those, like from the Design on a Dime. I bought a pair of those, like, plaster clams. They're in my
Yes.
living room right now, so I bought them from
Yes.
there.
I have one of your fire screens.
I mean, practical things at very good prices. They're coming back actually. They're doing a little smaller launch. But to answer your question, I love to go to see really great collector sales. Like, because you see someone's eye and the curiosity of it and the beauty and the interesting way they put things together. Collectors also found such unusual things because they were driven by this desire. Like, I don't go crazy shopping at them because I do find that the prices are driven through the roof, unless it's something I've never seen before and I really, really want it. Like, I'm like, well, where else am I going to find that? I can't make it. I can't. But I do go absorb it, and then it, like, then if you, it starts to come to you, you start to say, oh, that's how they did that. So you start to see something and you think like, oh, I could just take that and dip it in chalky white paint and put blue and white check behind it, and it's going to have a Swedish vibe, like, you know, the one I just saw at Yves Saint Laurent
The
sale.
chalky
you know
white
what I mean?
paint trick.
I know.
And I think for me, I don't necessarily for interior designers. If I like the piece, I just like the piece. It's not so much that the interior designer drives, me purchasing it. I think it's probably more fashion designers, and maybe, I don't know what it is about, like, for some reason, fashion designers end up being more celebrities than
They seem to have the
interiors.
best
I don't know what it
collections.
is.
They have
yeah,
the best collections.
Like, so I think during our meeting, like, I went to when Elizabeth Taylor had her auction, and I really thought I had a chance at this green trapezoid purse, but then it ended up going for like 50 times, no, 50 times more than the opening. And then obviously if Iris Apple had, like, I don't even know if she's having an auction, or maybe
I'm
her stuff is
sure.
going to, like,
I'm sure the Met.
and then I missed Andre Leon's house. Like, so that,
Yeah.
like, those are like probably the celebrities that would, where I would,
Excite
because of the
you.
profit. Yeah,
Yeah.
for me,
You feel a connection to
I
them.
feel a connection. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think we like to say collecting is a journey, and that, the stories of the pieces, for me in my own home, it's often about the stories of, and the people that own them, or how I, attain them, is really part of what makes me happy. How do you find yourself continuing the journey with your clients and helping them collect even after you finish the projects, or seeing something that you're like, this would be really great in your house, or when it's done, it's done?
I'm done.
I'm done.
I mean, I'm kind of done.
Unless they have another project.
Because I finished it, completed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
leave. I cut you off.
Well, no, I know. I was going to say, like, I do believe people get the stuff that's meant for them. Like, there are certain things that you see and you're like, oh, I gotta have it, and then you get it. And like, I do believe, like, Stephen Sills has Cecil Beaton's plastered Giacometti cone lamp. I'm like, he was meant to have that. Like, Mary, there's certain things that you have
You
that
were
I'm
meant
like,
to have the
like
IKEA chair.
Exactly. I was like,
Well, some IKEA is collectible now, believe it or not. I don't
You
know.
were meant to
I haven't
have
figured that one out
pottery
yet,
barn side table.
this is for you, darling. Christina, you may pick one present. But I think people are meant to have the things that they're supposed to get. But I think if you get close to someone and you really, like, there are a couple of houses that I've loved, and it's mostly artwork that I see that I'll be like, oh, I just have to send this to you. I saw it. Reminds me of you. No pressure. And curiously, sometimes people will bite. Do you know what I mean? Like, it won't work in a project, but I'm like, God, that really reminds me of, so-and-so's house. We should send it. And they'll be like, oh my God, you're right. Let's get it. We got to make it work. So there is occasionally something that you do.
But isn't that spot filled? See, I feel like it's generally like there is no
Have you
wall.
seen
I
this
love
slide?
fills. For myself,
We
I
just
love
push it around.
that's why I'm finished. I did the room.
Unless
I did
there was a
something
piece
in
that they
every
wanted to
spot.
keep that you want to replace.
There's always room.
That's a different story.
That's
There's
true.
always
But for
room.
myself, I love to go looking at any, auction of, like, I looked at, because I live near Stair.
Yeah.
Now I'll go up, and they have some really good sales. I remember they had, oh God, I forgot his name. The writer that had that pretty house that was like Palladian. John.
James Ivory?
James Ivory?
No, forget it. I can't remember.
Oh.
I'm blanking. He, what was his name? He had,
Oh, John Richardson.
thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That was a beautiful
And I'm so
sale.
mad
Yeah,
that I
please.
didn't buy these
Yeah.
Quizmos chairs. I was like, will I use these?
Yeah, you should
Will
have
I
gotten
not? I
those.
should have bought. Do you know those
Yeah.
Quizmos chairs?
I do.
They
I
didn't
most
even go
definitely
for
do.
that.
It's
Yeah,
okay
they were
now.
good.
I
I
know.
only
Time
buy
was
stuff like that
stub
for
toe.
myself.
But you know
Yeah.
what? They'll come
Usually
back.
I can't fit it.
They'll come back.
Yes.
Things come, like, that's the thing. We bought a pair of chairs at auction. I think we paid $5,000 for them, and we flipped them over, and it said, from the sale of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis.
Oh,
never
wow.
had said, never had said, it
Wow.
still had the original Sotheby's tags on it. It had never said anything in the auction catalog about it. And we looked it up, and they had sold for $60,000. And I was just like, fashion.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
it's like, it really goes to show you, it's all about how much somebody wants something.
That's true.
So you guys inspire all of us so much. Who inspires you? And I know in this slide, you might be wondering, some of these slides, aren't your work. What are the inspirational pictures, collections? Who's your dream client, or things, homes that inspire you?
Ladies.
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah, dive in.
I'm just trying to think of what favorite English houses that I pulled here. I was waiting for my own slides. I really love an old English house, but no one really asked me to do that level of house. But that's really what I love. Like, I love Nancy Lancaster and all that layering. That's kind of old lady-ish, really, but I really like that.
Me
Even though
too.
I don't really, that's not really what I get to do. Like, I love that yellow room.
Oh, fabulous.
And I really love all that whole era. Like, my favorite book is the Count and Tout. It's the
Colfax
Colfax
and
and
Fowler.
Fowler. Like, Count and Tout. Yes, my favorite book is the Count and Tout sample book. Is
Whose is this, Mary?
oh my God, I'm having like such
Was
early
that
dementia.
Bill Blass, the
No.
one before?
That was
Yes,
Bill
I
Blass
love Bill
before.
Blass. That is William Hodgins.
No, that is
No, that's
Princess
Albert
Pine.
Hadley.
Princess
but the one
Pine.
before, hurry.
Yeah.
So
William
back-
Hodgins.
Yes,
Yeah.
William Hodgins.
Yeah.
Just something about William Hodgins' work, which is
Beautiful.
I don't really like one kind of thing. I have
You
like
like it all.
10 different personalities in me. So,
And we love them all.
but I'm really inspired by this layered kind of old school movie-like interior because it's almost psychological. Like, I love the glamour of that.
Yeah.
Like old movie sets.
Like Mrs. Miniver. Do you know that
Yes,
house in Mrs.
yes.
Miniver? Oh,
That's really what I love.
Me
But
too.
it's not, I have to clean it up. And, like, that's my work, but that looks just
beautiful.
lady. I know, but it doesn't really have that, like, weird, creepy layering, which I like. You know what I mean?
I do.
Cleaner.
It's cleaner because that's how people live.
And also how what people can also sort
They
of
can't
digest.
deal with that.
Digest,
They
yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
that. People
But-
don't want that.
But that's you, right?
Yes, that's me.
That
I know
approaches
it's very
that
old ladyish,
deeply.
but it's me. People don't want all that old lady, really. I do.
I don't think people know what they want, and that's why they've
I
hired
know.
you. And I think you should lean into that and
I
give
try.
them more.
I do try, but
You know?
you know,
I don't
hard
find
for
that
me.
old ladyish. I think that's layered and interesting.
It is.
The term old lady seems derogatory.
Rich old lady.
And I'm just like, okay. Even
like,
kind of-
you're
all right.
rich old lady. How's that?
But like to me, it's like it says educated, cultured,
Okay.
curious, interesting. Like, yeah, rich old lady.
Okay. It does. I get it. But a lot of, I feel like people also like William Hodgins, when that came up.
Yes, the crispness.
There's a contemporariness to
freshness,
that
a
that
freshness.
is not
Yeah.
pattern on pattern and layer on
Yeah.
layer. But I'm also drawn to that. I'm drawn to two different things.
Who's your
So-
dream client?
Well, first of all, someone that completely trusts me and is easy. Well, it's
Yeah.
hard to.
That's
it's
hard to
actually
find.
hard.
Yeah.
And
it's
they
hard
need to
find
spend
those,
a
yeah.
certain amount of money
Yeah.
because it's not even for me to make the money. It's
Mm.
for me to have the ease of the
The ease,
job
yeah.
to be able to create. It's not even
Yeah.
like you're
Right.
thinking. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? You really
Yeah.
need an ease to
Yeah.
be able to buy things.
flow.
Just buy things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's more problem solving when the budget is.
I mean, it's already
Tighter.
a hard enough job to get it done without,
Yes.
like, how do I get that cheaper? I don't want to get it cheaper.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I don't even mean
Yeah.
it in a rude way. I just want to do the job. So my client is someone that's sophisticated and appreciates kind of a layering of things that are historical.
What do you think of that room?
Well, I love that, but isn't that Oscar de la Renta's house?
Yeah.
Well, see, but it's clean. It's
But
a
it
little
is,
clean.
yes, yeah. White,
It's like
but
the
like
old
that's
lady's been
layered.
taken. It is, but it's been
Yeah.
taken. See, like that was not old lady. That one's old lady.
That's Jane Reitzman
I know,
in
but it's old
Palm
lady.
Beach. Yeah, for sure.
It's,
See, that's even fresh.
But if you put that
because
Jane
t-
Reitzman on that carpet, it might, that might do a lot to kind
It
of like
does.
make it
If you keep
contemporary.
something fresh,
Yeah.
tonally fresh, I think is
Yeah.
what makes it more.
Yeah.
People like
Yeah.
that
Up to
better
date.
now,
Up to
right?
date.
Yeah.
But that's not tonally fresh.
I know. Well, it's on the whole old lady thing that I like.
Yeah.
You are kind of the old lady.
I am 100%.
Yeah,
like,
you have
like
that thing I
there.
like.
I like old lady, but I don't like that word.
I know it doesn't sound
so what would you
glamorous.
replace it with then?
Sophisticated.
Smart, chic, stylish. You know.
And I just didn't.
Fashion
use
is your
fashion.
inspiration.
Yeah, I just.
Yeah.
I think
Any
it's just
particular
my
designers?
background. Well, I mean, I can't remember all the designers that I threw in there,
Oh, no, but just in
um,
general.
Oh gosh, I mean, I love Valentino. You know,
He had beautiful
Dior.
homes.
God, incredible.
I mean, but I think sometimes I think maybe it's the art school. I don't necessarily want to be swayed by other people's rooms. I kind of want just room to like
Yeah,
imagine
evolve
and just let it
yourself.
evolve
Yeah.
and let the client and the architecture
Yeah, to
and
make
their,
something
yeah,
together.
that's really
Yeah.
where
I've never seen
because I
that.
think
Is it in this book?
every project
really
is
old house and
Yeah.
different,
It's
right?
so pretty.
And I
Yeah.
remember
And that's
the
just
first
my
time I
like.
saw
So
it,
I
was
use
like,
fashion and color,
I
and
was like, who
what
is
I
this
find is
guy?
that
And I was young.
fashion is very intricately related to interiors.
Yeah.
The balance,
before he
proportion,
was famous.
scale,
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, totally.
it's all
Yeah.
related. So you bring those same design principles from fashion. So you're basically for
And the
fashion,
color.
it's the anatomy of the body. For a home, it's the anatomy of a home. And you also have to lean into your strengths. Like my strengths are
Yeah.
color and pattern and so I
Line
bring
and
that
proportion.
and line and proportion. So I bring that. I mean, I'm very great at space planning, but
Mm-hmm.
I also love to like the
Push and
layering and
pull,
the yeah.
I'm going to put a brooch on here.
Yes.
This mirror there.
And I mean, it's just that the earrings are an accessory. So you can relate like the lamps in a room could be related to the earrings
Totally.
or your belt or your baubles or
The
whatever.
jewelry.
Do
Exactly.
you all have a dream client?
I was like thinking about that. Like, you think they're going to be a dream client, and then they're a nightmare.
Yes.
Like, that happens. You know what I mean? Like, the people that you think, like, you were going to make sweet love with, you sort of sometimes don't.
Mary's notion of like the trust, I think, is just the
I think
biggest
so.
thing. If
I'd love to throw out a name. Like, like, I mean, just like who,
I'd
you
like
know.
to
Or is
tell-
there-
I'd like to
I'd
throw
like
out
to
a
tell people who
name.
not to.
I would love, this is a kind of, like, no one's going to sort of know who this person is, but I was going to say, what's the, who's the editor-in-chief of the room that we always reference all the time? I cannot. Joan Lapham.
Louis Lapham.
Joan Lapham.
Yes.
I'm like, who is Joan and Louis Lapham? Like, sort of
Yes.
famous New York, San Francisco. But she has this incredible house of just staggering taste, and it's Baroque against the white plaster.
6 things in one room.
And like the edit, it's kind of like modern day Pauline de Rothschild, but more English somehow, less French. And I'm just like, I'd love to just learn from you, like, because it's so distilled, but it's still so like, what?
Yeah. I thought of the bench. We
You've
actually
seen
bought
it
a bench
1,000
from that apartment recently, and it didn't have the provenance on there, but it did say, there was a note that it was like, it's seen in House and Garden 1988, and it was like, oh, and it was a pair of benches from that room, and we probably did go a little bit more, because it was like, that lived in the imagination so heavily, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
And it just had like the real power presence that was like, from that image.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. Oh,
You
when
know,
you
you'll
see
know. Oh, I'll
it,
be like, that room.
when you see it,
that
you'll know.
room.
Nick, like, I showed Nick, and he references it all the time.
does?
Yeah, he does. It's one of
He
his
also
favorites.
references Walk the Room.
Oh, yes. I've walked the room many times. Have you walked the We had a crazy client who I
She
loved.
could be here. I would
know,
do swell.
no, I loved her deeply, but one of her things that she would say, I've walked the room many times. Have you walked the room?
Let's walk the room.
Or my notes.
You just like walk back and forth. I was like,
So now our phrase that we're like,
Walk the
let's
room.
walk the room.
So I thank you guys so much. I think it's time to walk the room with the mics to open up the questions
More old
and
lady
end
stuff.
on that
Look at
that
it.
note.
That's not old lady.
no,
Any questions?
Very fresh.
I know.
That's what people want.
Yeah.
We'll just wait for the
I want to be
modern.
What?
I did that. Or we did that. We did that.
So, yeah, they're
Yeah.
captions
Sort of hard to say.
If it says inspiration,
Like-
that's inspiration.
The ones that had inspiration on the
that's
side.
Me. So now these are my inspirations.
Inspiration.
that's inspiration.
Yes,
That's-
I'm not lying and said I did it, but I
Here.
could. I could.
Inspiration.
Inspiration. They're not in. Mine aren't.
One after the other.
Mine aren't matching my rooms. I just was like people that inspired me. I don't. And then the others just had different antiques in them. This is an inspiration.
But
This is one of my favorite rooms
I
because
see
it's clean. And then that
Uh,
was Albert Hadley, wasn't
yeah,
it?
Albert
And
Hadley for
that's one
Princess
of my
Pine.
rooms.
That was the show house, right?
I did that show house.
That was so pretty.
That's a room of mine, which is very different than the other. It's
But
like
no, I
cont-
see the Albert Hadley influence in that. The black
You do?
floors, the white walls.
That's a
I
room
do.
where I just bought junk. But
I
see how
love
fun
that.
is?
I
I
love
bought
that.
croquet sets. I was like, I don't know what to do out here. Let's
love
get online
croquet
and get a
sets.
bunch of croquet sets.
No, I love
That's
that.
a room I did that is full of antiques. So each person, then that's a room I did that just shows some antiques in sort of a clean light. And then it'll go to the next person. Oh, that's me. I put a chest in a kitchen because I loved it and it had an empty wall. So that's why I showed that. I was like, you can kind of do whatever
love
you
the
want.
floor.
And that was a little guest room of mine that just has funky stuff. So I went from high to low. Just you can collect things everywhere. Oh, and that's also mine. That's my old
But
house.
you see the inspiration of the Bill Blass circular table and the objects on it with the foot.
Oh, even I didn't
That
know
were-
that.
Yeah.
I was like, even I didn't know. And then these are Keitas.
Yeah. So I just show runway fashion. So you can really, so if you see my rooms following rooms, you can kind of see the pattern and color and how it relates. so this room was like very, I mixed the florals and the Chippendale and modern art with, there was a little bit of a leafy theme. I like to mix like an antique table with more modern chairs. I just don't, for me, I don't necessarily want it to be stuffy or, I don't know,
Stuffy.
old lady like.
She's got
What did you say?
I told you.
I mean, I think it
I
just
told
has
you
to-
the kids don't like it.
But you can see some of the curves repeated
Yes.
from the fashion through into your rooms as well, I think.
I just like the mix.
The
It's a
kids
bit
need
more
to
of a little bit
learn.
more of a
Kids.
mix of different eras.
Yeah.
She's my
And like
other
this is not my
example.
stuff, but this was my fashion designer client.
No,
And like I would never live like, even though I love her little kitchen.
I love that
But she
Love a blue
collected
kitchen.
teapots, and she inherited all these bowls from her mother.
And I love
And
the,
here you blend
the
the
pale blue
fashion.
kitchen
And then
with
this
the
was
red
at Barney.
stove
This
door.
was for the winter show, so we were able to do the windows in the old Barneys. So that was like
Aw.
really
that's fun.
I know.
But I mixed like, one of my great grandmothers is from Pacific Islands, so I mixed in some pieces that were Aboriginal with deco and
We love a mix-up.
yeah.
And then here's these two dapper gentlemen with their
You do love a hat.
These are all, this is David Hicks at the Albany. Yeah, inspiration, David Hicks. That's Oscar and Annette de Laurentiis' bedroom in Kent. These are all inspirations.
Oh, that's their
Love
bedroom?
That's their bedroom.
thing-
That was a bedroom.
That's the No Eyes, Jean-Michel Franck.
Summer slip covers.
Yeah. That's Jane Reitzman in Palm Beach. Yeah. And then,
Denning and
30,
Foucault?
30 people worked on that. But so this sort of shows you the inspiration of the De Laurentiis bedroom. That's the No Eyes.
He did the homework right.
These are the rooms
so
that we
you
were like,
did-
right. That's the sort
Mine
of
had
No
the-
Oh, yours
Eye.
is related.
That
yeah.
was the chocolate brown, the David Hicks room. Even though it's different, it's just like it takes its inspiration from that. That was Jane Reitzman in Palm Beach. Do you know, like?
So do you take, like, when you're working on the projects?
No,
do you
they take their
reference-
own. They take
Okay.
their own ephemera. That's a house in Palm Beach. That like they're just pictures, you know. That's the same butler's pantry going into the dining room in Palm Beach. Yeah. That's the bedroom in Palm Beach. They're just like different vibes. That's also the Palm Beach house.
What's your vocabulary and your encyclopedic memory of all of these things that you've seen that then kind of informs your own work, even maybe if you don't know that they're inspiring you? Isn't that?
Sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it just comes out from like, oh God, I didn't realize I'd absorbed that, and then
Yeah.
it like finds its way out. The mind is a fascinating thing. How
It's not copying, it's inspired.
I
Yeah.
feel like we're all mining from the collective unconscious, and if you borrow from thousands and thousands of people, it's just our minds putting it back out in a new and different way. If you borrow from one person, it's plagiarism, but we all plagiarize a little bit here and there.
Well, you have to. No one
Right.
invented
There's
the
nothing
chair.
new.
I
There
mean,
is nothing new.
There's no. I mean, if it's new, it looks like a truly a piece of art. I mean, like a sculpture.
Sure.
That's the only thing
yeah.
that's really new.
Yeah. And barely.
Someone is.
Another question over here?
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I am a fan of each and every one of you, so it has been a wonderful conversation. Are there some specific techniques you use in order to incorporate antiques into very contemporary spaces and make it chic, layered, and warm while maintaining the soul of a very contemporary space?
you want me to take this?
Yes, I do.
So I feel like I always say like the tension of disparate elements. Like if you put one antique thing in a very contemporary space, it suddenly becomes interesting because it's like these two disparate things are like it's that tension between them. So I always say if you have a very traditional space, you need a few modern things. And if you have a very modern space, you need a few antique things because that's what's going to make it cool.
Yeah.
And so my thing is it's just to have that contrast working all the time. If you have too much of one thing, it becomes a bowl of coffee ice cream. And you just always have to have that push-pull between, the two different that like crumbly next to slick,
Yes.
old ancient next to old, like linen next to satin, like so that it's all these, different polarities that make something cool.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, hi. So my question is, since psychology is like 50/80% of our job, how do you approach trying to do something really cool with a client that you think might be interested in doing a wild color or the opposite? I want to do a room like that one with the green drapery where it's just green and like, do you like green? We're going with green and white and that's it. And we're just keeping that. How do you approach that or get your clients to get excited about an idea?
I think if you're excited about the idea and you have the vision of the idea, then they're going to get behind you. And it's just the conviction of you feel it in your soul and you can see that it's going to be great and cool, then it will be great and cool.
I also start with, what do you love and what do you hate? Like, it's
Yeah.
so easy to just, there's so much they like already. They're
Right.
like, I hate red, I love blue. Like, I don't want to spend my whole time trying to have them have a red 50s room when they're like, I hate the 50s and I hate red. Like, there's enough to choose from when you're just like, tell me at the front end, tell me what
Yeah.
you just hate. Like I make them do a little homework.
I
just
do.
so
Like, I have a
don't waste
questionnaire.
my time.
Yeah.
And then there was enough to choose from in that. Like if you were talking about the green room, that was mine with the great curtains. That was like an extra guest bedroom, and I was like, how about this pretty green? So it's not that hard to find things that people are like, just something general like that, because that's pretty. That's a pretty easy formula room. It's white and another color, which is like the easiest formula ever, kinda to me.
Yeah.
Like if you're stuck, just do that. You know what I mean?
I do.
One step.
Any other questions?
And then throw in another color after they don't know.
Then
Oh, is there one? He's coming around.
Hi, thank you. Am I? What was the room?
Tyra.
Hi, Mary. I'm gonna give you a
I know
kiss later.
you.
Watch out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
If you want one. What was the room that you mentioned? I missed it. That Mary didn't know, but would know if she saw it.
Oh, Joan and Louis Lapham. It's been on a lot of Instagram feeds. You'll when
New
you
York
see
City
it,
apartment.
It's a
Yeah.
famous
Roberto
room, is what you're
Gili.
saying.
Photographed it for House
among
and
the
Garden.
cognoscetti, if
Oh.
you will. Do you know?
What was it in? Like 80s House
It
and
was
Garden?
it was an Anna Wintour House and
HG?
Garden, HG. There's it's very grand. The children are all gorgeous. One's skateboarding up the front
The
hall.
perfect blonde bob.
Do you know what I
just,
mean? Like,
coming down the.
and
I don't know what it was. but-
and then, but anyway, it's.
Lapham.
I think Joan is the real taste person, but she's super private. There's never anything about her. I'm always kind of googling and trying to find images and it's just crickets.
That's it.
And then Louis Lapham is a famous publisher of what is it it's I want to say Harper's, but it's not. It's something even loftier than that. What was it? Lapham Quarterly. Yeah, but before that, wasn't it something like the Paris Review or something even? It's not that, but it's something even more, esoteric, political, interesting. But anyway, they've got great taste.
Thanks. And actually, on the Instagram note, I guess I'm wondering how often people just come to you with things we talked about incorporating current collections that they might have and pieces, but how often do they see something, either Instagram, first dibs, something anywhere that they just come to you and insist?
I think
I know,
people see great stuff all the time
Yeah.
and send us pictures of it, and they're like, "How's that?" I'm like, "Great," because it gives you a point of reference, and you're like,
Of what
"Let's
they
work
like.
towards this."
Yes.
That's how you do it.
One last question here. Wait. Oh, here. I think there's one last question here.
Harper's. Yeah, it was Harper's. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Here, just here.
How and when in the process do you incorporate art? And is it always changing? Do you sometimes start with a work of art and then, build around that? Or is it always at the end? Or and it's so subjective.
I don't think it's always.
Very challenging, I would imagine.
Okay, so I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. We go shopping at William Doyle all the time. They have so much art on the wall. It is always going for really reasonable prices. And there is nothing, sometimes it's a name, sometimes it's a no name, sometimes but there's just people have collected so much stuff. These people die, the sales people don't want all the stuff. You go and we just send people pictures of things and they're like, just make a bid. Once you get it, you show up and you just start arranging. It's like the gift of a good decorator is just being able to arrange. And there's always a place where you're like, oh, I'm going to need a set of botanicals in this hallway. I'm going to need this painting down low by the fireplace. I need this drawing leaning against the mantle. You just buy it and then make it work on site. That's how we do it.
I think throughout the process.
Yeah, throughout.
Sometimes they have their own work. You can work around it, and then there may be holes, or it could be at the end. And then another thing I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, I've seen a lot of people not framing their work anymore. So I don't know if they're borrowing for the shoots or if they're just not
I think
framing.
it's a look. It's a look.
Is it a look?
Yeah, I think,
Okay,
it's very sort of boho chic if you have
Okay.
something sort of like an old canvas leaning up against the wall. But I do think that books and art make projects and start with that. Go heavy on
Yeah.
that because it will always then look cozy and lived in and interesting. So.
But it also depends on the client, because there are pieces that I would, I've introduced clients to or showed them or brought them, by, you mentioned, I don't normally go shopping with my clients, but if I really want them to, and then they, either, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
you can lead a horse to water. You cannot teach them to drink.
But it's still there. It's hanging in their home. My taste may be slightly
and also
different.
something
It's
can
personal.
look so sort of
Yeah.
on an auction floor, but you take it off the wall, you put it on your beautiful colored painted walls, and suddenly it comes alive. And you just have to sort of romance them.
I do find that in the furniture plan, there are certain walls that I know I need something of size. I don't want a million little things there. So I might start with art where I know it has to be something that you're really looking at that's a certain size. So there's certain walls, I know I don't want them sort of junked up with smaller things. So I might sometimes be on the front end of that, trying to find something that I had in mind, as opposed to kind of waiting to what I could find towards the end. But that's kind of, I take all the walls, I just have my office do this, just so I have an idea when I see things, and just kind of put fake blocks up of it would look good if there was 4 things here and 4 things there. It's like a floor plan of it's just an elevation of the walls. There's nothing, I don't have anything, but I'm just so when I see things, I have it in my mind. I've got these 12 pages of different walls that I could do 4 little things and then add something to the top, but I have this big wall. So I know it fits. I mean, there is the problem of you love things, they don't fit anywhere. No matter how much you love them. Then you got to get really weird. You got to come up with weird ideas.
Cut it down.
Yeah, floating, just floating break fronts. Yes.
Bring me the axe.
Do you know what I mean?
This is a screen break from.
Yes.
I watched the
kind
page
of.
on.
You guys make it sound so easy and look so easy and gorgeous. Thank you guys so much for being here. I think we're out of time, but thank you.
Laura,
That was wonderful.
I thought we would tell people how horrible it was.
Thank you.